When we look at this particular problem, this should be very similar to what we have just been working on with the area of sector. It is asking a question about what is the area of a section of the stained glass. Do you agree? So that is a sector, so to speak. What shape is the stained glass window in right now? A semicircle. And so when we think about the degrees, what are the degrees of a semicircle?
180.
180. Very good. The problem is that I don't want the area of the whole stained glass. I want for each section. So how many sections do you see in your stained glass? 3. Very good. So what degree measure, remember that our formula that we're looking at is the degrees over 360 times pi r squared. Do you agree? So what we're looking for in our problem is we're looking to figure out what the radius is and what the angle measure is. Do you agree? That's what we're looking for each time. So let's start with the angle measure. I'm not going to put 180 there because I don't want the whole stained glass window. I just want one section of it. So how would I get my answer? Not 6. 180 divided by 3. Because there's 3 of them, right? So I have a total of 180 degrees. Guys, please just turn it in. You don't need to look at other people's answers. Just throw it right down and come sit down. You don't need to do anything else. Thank you. So 180 divided by 3, which means that each of these angles here is 60 degrees. Do you agree? That's all I'm looking for. So it's 60 degrees over 360. Any questions about where the degree measure came from? Feel okay about that? Just 180 is the whole thing. So one of them is 60. Now I'm looking for the radius because that's the other piece of information that I need, right? So what's the radius here? It's 3. Very good. The diameter is 6. Do you agree with that, looking at the picture? So we want half of that, so the radius would be 3. So take a minute, plug it into your calculator. If I have to close it again, I won't take it. Okay? Did you put the whole thing? You typed it in? Let's see if anybody else gets the same answer. Is that what Claudina got? Yeah. Good. Anybody over here get 4.7? Evan's testing it. Emanol's testing it. Luke, you should be writing it down or putting it in your calculator.
That's example 1.
This is example 1. This is just the review for our test that we're having next class. Okay? And what are my units? Not plain old feet because it's area. It's square feet. Remember that? Square feet. So each of those stained glass pieces will have an area of 4.7. Yeah? Is that okay? So again, what I've highlighted in my formula is what changes. The degree measure that we're looking for and the radius of the particular circle. Hildebert. Because this is the part of the area. It's the section of the area. So this is the degree that we're looking for over the total. Still a circle, though. It's still a circle, yeah. Good question, though. I see what you mean. You thought we should change the 360 to 180? Yeah. It's still because we're talking, if I was to continue it, it would still be the circle. Okay, good question. How do we feel about that problem, okay? Very similar. Now it's a word problem, so we just have to figure out what we needed to pull out of the word problem to be able to finish it, okay? All right. Any questions about arc length? Because you have to answer those questions next class. Remind me what the formula for arc length is and what it is. Yeah, go ahead. The angle, whatever the angle is, over 360 times. Right, good. So it's part of the entire circumference, right? It's, if I was going to take a piece of string and go over the arc, it's the length of my string. So it's going to be in whatever feet or inches or whatever the length would be. Good. All right, so you have a quiz next class on calculating arc length and area of sector. We also have part of our quiz that deal with equations of circles. So I wanted to make sure that we went back and talked about that. So I am going to hand back to you your 7A and C. So if you're watching this recording, go ahead and pause it at this time and hand back those 7A and C quizzes. Or not quizzes, but the worksheets that y'all turned in last class. We're going to look at this problem. This is going to be example 2 for our test review. And then we're going to go back and look at those 7A through C practice sheets again and try problems 6, 7, and 11. Okay? So go ahead and take your notes back out, the ones that you put the stained glass picture, on. This was example 1. Let's go ahead and look at example 2 and put this problem as example 2. Okay? So it's asking us to write the equation of the circle. So and I will give the equation of the circle to you on the board on the day of the quiz, okay, next class. Don't worry about that. Let's remind ourselves what the formula is. Parentheses, x minus h, quantity squared, plus y minus k, quantity squared, is equal to r squared. Right? That's the formula for the area, for just the equation of a circle. We need to plug numbers in for all of the things that I've highlighted. Do you agree? Okay. Let's start with the center. Fair enough? Let's find the coordinates of HK, which is the center of my circle. Now, I'm a picture person. I like to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to just draw a sketch of the graph. Because the numbers are so big, is it okay if I don't draw like the whole, I just kind of do an estimate sketch. Is that okay with you? All right. So I know I'm going to be mostly on the right side. We have 19 and 9. That's one part. That's one of the diameters, the end point. And then we have 3, and then we have -7. And that would be the other one. Are we okay so far? So in other words, this is, if I go from here to here, that's the diameter of the circle. So I'm just going to attempt to draw a circle, oh geez, pretend that that's a circle, where that is my diameter, what's in red. Just a picture. I'm just a picture person. Can we kind of estimate where we think the center of my circle should be? Where should the center of the circle be? Is it here? No. On the diameter. Isn't it on the diameter itself? Not just specifically on it, but where on it? Is it going to be here? Is that the center of my circle? Guys, come on, talk to me. Where's the center of my circle? It's in the middle of my diameter, isn't it? It's the midpoint of the diameter. We've done that before. We know what the midpoint, somewhere around there. Again, it's a rough sketch. It's not exact. The key is it's the midpoint of the diameter. Do we remember where the midpoint is? Halfway between here and here. Do you agree? What's the formula for halfway? If I look at these two numbers, what's halfway between 19 and 3? How do I find the average or the middle between 19 and 3? Didn't we add them together and divide by 2? Remember our formula? So my center is I take my x coordinates, add them, and divide by 2. And I take my y coordinates, and I add them and divide by 2. So what is 22 divided by 2 is 11. And what is -2 divided by 2 is, positive 1. Sorry, yes, positive 1. Does that look like it could be about where I drew it? Again, rough estimate, right? So that's my center. So if I use my center to write my equation, what numbers go in there? Doesn't the 11 go with the x? Is there a plus sign or a minus sign here?
Minus.
It's minus, good. And then what goes with my y? Minus 1. So the only thing that I'm missing now is what? The radius. So I need to figure out what my radius is. Well, what do you think that's going to be? So we know that the coordinates of here, that is, what did we say, 11 and 1. How do I find, what am I looking for in terms of the radius? The radius, aren't I actually looking for that distance, that length? Well, be careful. Don't. It's not just a. It just takes a little bit of work to get that answer. I want to find the distance. Well, and so I want to find the distance between the point. I'm going to redraw it here. So don't just yell out answers. Just hang tight. So I want to find the distance between 11,1 and what? So I picked 19,9 because that's the way that I drew it. Do you agree? It doesn't really matter, but we'll say 19,9. So I want to find the distance between these two things. How did we do that before? Ahmed, come on. This is on your test notes class. I'm not doing it for no reason. I did an equation, which way? And there's two ways. I did a distance formula or I did Pythagorean theorem, didn't I? So I'm looking for this as my radius. What's the distance between 11 and 9? Good. What's the distance between 1 and 9? So what is the radius squared? I have 8 squared plus 8 squared, and we'll finish this up after lunch. So we have 8 squared plus 8 squared is equal to, if we're looking at the right triangle, it's equal to r squared, isn't it? What is 8 squared? 64. So I have 64 plus 64 is equal to r squared. And what is that?
128.
128 is equal to r squared. Now, I'm done because isn't r squared in the formula anyway? So I can just simply, rather than say whatever squared, this whole thing here is just simply 128. Because that's r squared. Okay? So the equation of the circle that has the endpoints of the diameter at 19,9 and 3, -7 is this. Now, on your quiz that you're going to have, it's going to be a multiple choice question. So, we could really start by looking at the center. Do you agree? So, how does the center of my answer choices help me? Well, we know that the center has to be the midpoint. Do you agree? So that's a way to kind of narrow down some of your answer choices. It is a tough question. Uh-huh. It definitely is a tough question. I agree. All right. So what I'd like for us to do is look at problem number 11 on your 7A through C practice that was just handed back to you. So we're looking at problem number 11. Number 11 is identical to this question. It was extra credit before, but now I want us to do it. Okay? So I want you to look at problem number 11. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. If you look at problem number 11, it does say that the endpoints of the diameter are 0, 0, and 6, 4. Please sketch that. What does that look like in problem number 11? So let's try it. So we have 0, 0, and 6, 4. So if we're going to sketch this, 0, 0 is here, 6, 4, here's my diameter. You should be doing this. This is something that you need to be able to do on number 11. So here's my diameter. We want to draw the circle that would connect these. Hopefully I did a fairly decent job there. Not bad, right? So we need to think about the equation. So in this problem, remember what we're looking at here. We're looking at plugging in these values. So I would like for you to pause the recording and go ahead and attempt to find the center. Remember, what is the center again? It's the midpoint of the diameter, right? And then you need to find the radius. So your quiz is going to be next class, and you will have on a next class, you will have a quiz on all of 7A through 7D. So what I want you to work on is problem 6, 7, and 11 on this worksheet that you were given out in class. You also are going to get your 7D, which is, you should be turning that in today, which is your area of sectors and area of arc length. So you have a quiz on all 4 sections next class.